Welcome back to another episode on Genealogy TV. My name is Connie Knox. Now, recently I got an email from one of the viewers of Genealogy TV, and he says, I've done all this research. What happens then? I'm actually going to read to you what he actually asked me because it was a really good question. And so let me pull this up. And he says, in response to your videos about finding, filing, and sourcing information, I have a request. Would it be possible for you to walk us through step by step on how you do this process? I'm specifically getting hung up on digitally attaching the source information. He says, I perform a search. I find the appropriate document on Ancestry. I download it, and it automatically goes into my download folder. At that moment, it still bears the Ancestry's, he calls it alphabet soup moniker. I stop the search process in order to open up the downloaded folder. I rename the document according to who, what, where, when, and so on. And the document then gets filed under his family. He's got his own file process. And he says, you know, the surname folder and then the ancestors folder and then the document. He says, at that point, it's still just a document filed digitally on my C drive. No sources have been attached. What happens then? So, great question. And he says, if you could show us steps from start to finish, I think it would be helpful. Really great question. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this video in two parts. One is just kind of a brief overview of the research process, and then a brief overview of the filing process. Now I'm following the handout that I have here. This is just kind of a follow the document kind of video, but here's what we do. So we're going to start with the research process. So step number one is to really review what you have. Now I know that Chris, you had already, the gentleman who emailed me, has already gone through some of this, but for those who are new to genealogy or just need a refresher, this is a great opportunity to kind of jump in and get a refresher on the research process, and then we'll jump into the filing and organizing of your documents. So review what you have. So identify your target ancestor. And I call them target ancestors because I'm trying to get you to focus on one person at a time. Maybe an ancestral couple, but it's really, I focus on one person and then I go to the spouse and I focus on that person. So do that. Back up to the younger generation if you don't have all the details for the younger generation. So make sure that you have totally flushed out the children before you go back a generation to the parents. Review the records you have on hand for the target ancestor, okay? Number two, start research notes. I know that some of you resist the research notes process, but I promise you it's a game changer. And so you keep one set of research notes per ancestor, cite the sources, and make sure you know, for everything you find, you're putting that stuff in chronological order in your research notes. Now, before I go any further, there's about 15 steps here. If you don't want to take notes, there is a handout for this on YouTube at the information access level, channel membership at patreon.com/genealogy TV for those who are at the happy dance level, and for all of the Academy members, they get all the handouts in the lesson. Number three, review the hints. So this is the low-hanging fruit, especially on Ancestry. You can then go and review those hints because that's the easy stuff. That's the stuff that's probably likely your ancestors, but you know, your records for your ancestors. So not necessarily, so you need to evaluate each one. So carefully review your documents, and then if you're not sure, just click on, if you're an Ancestry user, click on the maybe. So either you accept it, you ignore it, or you click maybe. And either, whatever you choose, you can always go back to the hint tab and look at, even if you ignored it, it's not gone away, it's still in there. So number four, review what is missing. Review all the documents and think about what is missing. I usually label that in my research notes. I kind of make it, you know, in red. I kind of label that because it becomes my research plan later on. Number five is search the three-way method. Now, I'll leave a link in the description box for the Trifecta Strategy video I did a couple years ago. Basically, what that is researching on 3 different sites in 3 different ways. So if you're an Ancestry user, the other site should be Family Search, and vice versa. If you're on Family Search, you might be able to do a little bit of research on Ancestry, even if you're not a member. And a third place, depending on what it is that makes sense. So if it's the National Archives, if it's MyHeritage, if it's the local library, whatever makes sense is that third place. And each one of those, you're going to search in 3 different ways. You're going to search by surname, you're going to search by place, and you're going to search by era or date. Okay. Number 6 is the research plan. Okay, so now you've kind of been collecting stuff, you've put them into your research notes. Along the way, you're starting to go, hey, wait a minute, this is an index, there's more to find here. I need to find the original record, so I'll make it in red on my research notes so that starts to become my research plan. Plan your research and research your plan, which is number 7. Okay, so don't deviate from your research plan because that's really important to making sure that you're checking all the boxes, right? And you can think of other things along the way and add it to your research plan, but you stay focused, one ancestor at a time, and go through that process of researching your plan, okay? Then go through and research the fan club. Those are the friends, associates, and neighbors. Thank you, Elizabeth Shone Mills, for that acronym. So that is spouses, siblings. You make sure that you've got them all covered because it's in those records that might give you some more data. Number 9 is member trees. Now, this is usually one of the last steps that I do when I am researching family history, and that is because I don't want any bias about my research. I don't want any other member tree to take me down the wrong trail. I'm not saying that member trees are all wrong, but occasionally they are. And by the time you go through this whole process, more than likely you're the one who has the majority of the records anyway. So make sure you're looking for those member trees. Also, don't forget to look at the photo galleries of those other member trees that are popping up in the hints. And because sometimes people take photographs of documents that they have gone to the archives or the library or whatever, and they collected a document, they photographed it and put it in the gallery, and so it's not a document in the traditional sense on the front page source column. It's going to be in the gallery forms. All right, number 10 is if you're doing DNA, to go through DNA matches and see if there's any other clues. More than likely, those member trees that are connected to those DNA hints are going to be popping up in your hints anyway, but it never hurts to look at the higher level DNA matches. Hey, did you know that you can get everything I produce all in one place, commercial free? Well, now you can at the Genealogy TV Academy. For one membership price, you can get an all-access pass that includes all of the online courses, all of the YouTube channel videos dating back to 2022, early release of any new videos coming up on the YouTube channel, the live classroom instruction via Zoom, and the handouts and worksheets associated with all the videos. If you want to learn more, go to genealogytv.org/academy. All right, so this is where we pick up with the organization part. So we've done the research, now we're going to organize these files. And really you do this as you go, so it's not laborious, but this is the organization part, okay? So number 11 on the list, on the handout, is to create those research notes. Now, you should be doing this all along as you're doing your research. One set of research notes per ancestor, keep them in chronological order, start with the date, use headers for your title, research notes for John Doe, right? And use a footer with your contact information because someday somebody's going to inherit this document. You want to be able to show people who's been doing the research, right? Don't upload these research notes to online platforms. I never do. And the reason why is because I don't want someone to grab that document or my research notes for that ancestor at that moment in time, because it's a living, breathing document. It's constantly being updated. New records are coming online all the time, and I'm adding to my research notes. So I'm not being stingy. The reason why I don't do that is because it's constantly changing. And you know what? Sometimes new evidence comes about, and what I had put in there was wrong. I have new evidence now that disproves what I thought I had before. So sometimes records don't agree, right? I bet you've experienced that before. So if records don't agree, we need to correlate that evidence. We need to come to a conclusion, right? So long story short, don't upload your research notes. Give them to your family, but you don't need to be putting them online. Before I get to number 12, one more comment about research notes, and that is research notes are the most important document in your file. Treat them as gold. put them at the top of the list. I use a 1 in front of my research notes so that it always rises to the top. I'm always going to that one set of research notes. It never hurts to back up to the cloud as well. All right, number 12, transcribe documents. Don't skip this step. I know people will, I don't want to transcribe, it's too much work. If you have to, voice track it, but transcribe the documents. And I actually voice track a lot of my research notes using my microphone, and then I transcribe it, or dictate it into my research notes, because when you speak it out loud, you notice details you never saw before, even if you're typing it. Learn how to do transcriptions correctly, because I promise you, it's a game changer as well. You will see things that you never saw before, relationships you never noticed before, family names you never noticed before. And one of the things that you always want to pay attention to, which is not in the research notes or into the handout here, is to be looking out for those witnesses and other family members that are in those documents you're transcribing. Add source citations to your transcription. Now, this is a separate document. This is not part of your research notes. When you transcribe something, that is a standalone document that is, let's say it's a will for somebody. You transcribe the will, you add source citations, you add your contact information at the bottom. You also add an image on page 2 with its own source citation. That way, if the pages ever get separated, the source citation always goes with it. All right, then you're going to abstract from that transcription. You're going to take out all the juicy goodness out of that. That would mean basically what you're doing is you're removing all the boilerplate information and you're leaving the abstracted information, the order in which it was transcribed, and then put the abstracted information into your research notes. All right, number 14 is those file folders for your ancestors. So one file folder per ancestor, and start with a highest level surname folder. So if it's Smith, then put Smith folder. Then inside that folder, create another folder that says Smith John, basically. And if you have too many guys by the same name, then put Smith John, born 1827. Then the other folder might say Smith John, born whatever other date it was, so that you can separate those documents. Number 15 is the filing documents within Ancestors folders. Now you're going to use the same nomenclature that you use to file the documents, okay? So when you are filing, when you're creating documents, not folders, but documents, you would use the same thing. You would say, Smith, John, and then I usually put a hyphen. I might say birth certificate, and then the year of the document, not necessarily year of birth or anything like that. You want the document year. And then you file that document inside that Ancestors folder. So I get this question a lot. What happens if you have multiple people in one document? Copy it into all of their folders. Space is cheap. And those documents are probably so tiny that as far as file space goes, it really doesn't matter. So I would if I have a husband and wife, maybe it's a marriage certificate, I would put that same transcription and the same information, the same document in both folders. So now we've kind of gotten through that whole filing process. What are your next steps now? Your research process is not done, but you would do things like evaluate those documents, correlate your evidence. You want to make sure that all of the conflicting evidence is sorted out. You figured it out. And that's through this process that we go through to correlate that evidence and resolve conflicts. Then you're going to write up your conclusions, and guess what? You're going to add it to your research notes. We love research notes around here. So that's kind of a lot of what we talk about at the Academy. I'll tell you what, just for you. If you want to get in to the Genealogy TV Academy and learn how to do all of these little steps, those are the skills that I teach over there, and I'll give you a 25% off discount just for making it to the end of this video. That would be GTVA 25 and the percent symbol. And if you want extra discount, pick the annual option to begin with, and it'll start with a 10% discount just for choosing the annual option. And then you can jump into the Academy with an additional 25%. So you use that promo code at checkout and you're good to go. All right, so I hope that was helpful. Chris, I hope that answered your question. So we kind of go through that whole process and we make sure that everything is filed and organized, because then it makes the research fun and easy. And when you are getting ready to go to your research phase, whatever you like, you coming back to it and you decide, okay, I want to investigate the military records or whatever for this one particular ancestor. Now you're organized, you're set to go, and because you have research notes, you're in a great position to just quickly jump to, okay, where was he in 1941, about the time World War II was starting, and blah, 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 and you can just like bing, 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 get to those notes really fast without a lot of labor. So that is the process. I hope that was helpful. There are more videos on the screen for your binge watching pleasure. We'll see you in the next one.